Yo, visualize shark takes, hit the wave grinding. In the chat, gun shark odds make it rhyming. Sunday vibes, smooth bets, no confining. Hats engaged, can't stop us from shining. Bet on the spread, liking it, keep it tight. Push the odds further, jack on the hindsight. Odds fellows mind grasping the right sight. Hats, caps on heads, winners in plain sight. Hit the like, get in the chat, feel the flow, cash it, every dollar see the bank roll. Sunday grinding picks, now you gotta know. Extra points on the screen, sharp minds always glow. Big parlays, predictions we home. Standing tall, betting knowledge all.
On a suddenly not so casual Sunday in December, it is NFL The Extra Points, the big show, week 16, the Shark, the Gun, and the Odds Fellow right here live on Sharky Waters Nation X, YouTube, and the Guns Picks channel. A beautiful Sunday in December. The three-way is back. Guns Picks, what's going on, brother?
Yeah, we just had a beautiful Saturday with the college football playoff. Man, sides were cooking. Totals were not, but we still made a little bit of cash yesterday. And now we're going to be talking about a little bit of the NFL. And I am ready to break down this slate. Odds Fellow is with us today, and he has the immaculate vinyl collection in the background, which I do like that. How you doing this beautiful morning?
I'm great, man. I'm with family. It's the holidays, right? So we got the backdrop that the one and only Tony Latino uses. You can go check out his YouTube channel. The man is dropping vinyl knowledge and really crushing it out there. But today we're going to crush the books. Raquel is in the house. She's the first one to chat. I'm going to get those sides going, those totals cooking that Guns was having problems with. We're going to get them going today. So pumped for week 16.
Not waiting around. Anthony looks like he's at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We're going to MetLife Stadium. Aaron Rodgers might be going to the Hall of Fame himself, but certainly not this season. A disastrous campaign. The first official of the show. We have a ton of 1 o'clock plays, and the conversation will flow. Anthony Latino, over 46.5.
Over. You know, if I'm taking it over, we're taking it seriously. I am in New Jersey, so we're going to back this total here, especially in under and cold weather, right? Cold weather, outdoor December football game. Usually to me, that would all chalk up to an under, but we're going to be on the Rams Jets over 46.5, looking for a little track meet to get going here, even if it starts slow. Since firing Robert Saleh, the Jets totals have landed at, let's rattle through these: 43, 52, 47, 34, 37, 55, 47, 58, and 57. So that is a good old 6-3 against this number. But it also plays out statistically speaking, right? This Jets defense, since that firing, has a minus 67.4 EPA defensively. That's good for last in the league. The Rams' success largely depends on the health of their weapons. And we've seen this over the last few years. Shark's going to get into it too. But when they are healthy, especially with Puka and Kupp on the field, especially mid to late season, these guys are firing. This Rams team is averaging 2.22 points per drive. That's good for 13th in the league, combined with a 43.6% offensive success rate, which is good for 6th. So I expect the Rams to look to make a statement, especially after that offensive lack of a juggernaut performance that they had on Thursday Night Football, winning 12-6. Now they get 10 days rest. They get a much more favorable matchup. The last two games, Tua has thrown for 331 yards, and Mac Jones has thrown for 294 yards against this Jets defense, both of them tossing 2 TDs. So we've got a little momentum on the Jets side offensively too. Aaron Rodgers putting up some more fantasy-worthy-like stats, including throwing for 289 and 3 TDs last week. So I just think this thing's going to get going. The weather's good. It's just cold, which shouldn't be an issue. So over 46.5, I'll toss it to the Shark for a side.
Absolutely. 1 o'clock in East Rutherford, taking the Rams at -3. And, Ant, you said it, a lot of stuff going on in this game. Out of conference, out of division, once every 4 years. Generally, games we kind of try to avoid because they're not data abundant, but I think we really are. It's week 16. We have a lot of information. And let's talk the Rams first. Rams started this season 1-5 ATS. They're 6-2 ATS last 8. This is exactly what they did last year. And I think this is deeply psychological. McVay won a Super Bowl with Stafford 3 years ago. Now they're playing classic football where you're playing for December and January, not September. This is where they turn up their quality, and their flow on the road is very similar. Started 0-3 ATS on the road. Key point, all as an underdog when they were very injured. They're 4-0 ATS last 4 on the road. Very impressive wins. at Seattle, at New Orleans, most recently on Thursday Night Football at San Francisco. But I think more importantly, week 11 at New England in this division, 28-22 cover, also an over, very noteworthy there. And that is important for a Pacific time team traveling cross country to know they will show up at this early kick time. And I think this is truly just a great spot to sell the Jets. The Jets are coming home off back-to-back games in Florida, both competitive, at Miami overtime loss, at Jacksonville tight win last week. Now you come home, you're 2-0 ATS last two, you're too hot, and you return to where you have underperformed all year against the NFC West, going 0-3 ATS, all with some emphasis, blown out at San Francisco, blown out at Arizona, and did take a 5-point loss most recently against Seattle, 26-21 at home. This is the strongest line books have laid out with the NFC West versus the Jets this year. -3 road is a very heavy line if you zoom back out to expectations in August. Really heavy spot here today. Rams need this for the playoffs. This is where you want to buy this team in all capacities and fade the Jets. Anthony on the over. I'm on the Rams. 2 plays in this game. Let's dominate. Throwing it to the gun. Another 1 o'clock game. We do have officials in every single 1 o'clock game this week. Really a lot of information and a really interesting game developing here at 1 o'clock in Charlotte. Cardinals on the road at the Panthers. Kyler Murray, Bryce Young rejuvenated, but Murray returning to where he has performed great in his career on the road. The gun knows that. I'll throw it to him. Arizona -4.5.
Yeah, I think we've kind of figured out where Kyler Murray is great and where he's not great in some of these cases. And I think with this spot here, where everybody's kind of already buying into the hype of the Carolina and them being pesky and them being competitive, I think in this situation it's a different story. And let me tell you why. You have Arizona, right? They've lost 3 out of the last 4 games, and they're 7-7 on the year. So, maybe a little bit of a decline here for the Cardinals, but I think they bounce back here. Then you got Carolina, lost 4 straight and are off a 16-point loss to Dallas, where they were favored for the first time in like 2 decades. I don't know. It was like 2 or 3 years, but 3-11 on the year, -12-point differential for the year. And then what does Arizona like to do? They love to run the ball. They're 9th in rush play percentages, 3rd in rush yards per play, and 7th in rush yards per game. And then they're going against Carolina defense that is ranked dead last in rushing yards per carry and rushing yards per game. So there's going to be a run-oriented element here to the Cardinals, which is going to take the pressure off of Kyler Murray, in my opinion. And then Arizona just performs well when they can run the ball. If you actually just go into the statistics, take a deep dive, look how many when Arizona rushes for 150 yards or more, which I believe they can do today, they are 7-1 ATS with a +7.8 point differential in those spots. So I think as long as they can run the ball, run it efficiently, and put up the yards, this is going to be a blowout here for the Arizona Cardinals. And then Carolina has been a covering machine as of late. Like I said, 5 out of their last 6. But all those covers were as of a dog, 6 points or more. When they are lower than that, less than 6 points or more, 6 points or less, they are 0-6 ATS in those spots, and they are losing by an average of 21.6 points per game. I mean, that is a huge delta there when the line is sitting in lower than 6 points. And also, this is the second largest spread for Arizona being a favorite. The largest was the previous game where they were at home versus New England, and you saw what happened in that game. They won 30-17. So I think this is a perfect spot here for Arizona because they're still playing for a playoff spot. They still have motivation. Carolina's got nothing to play for. If anything, they want to kind of regress and coast through this, maybe get a high draft pick. I know players play for their contracts and stuff like that. I'm not saying that they're all the players are just going to lay an egg here. I just think Arizona in this position is going to win this game by margin. So give me Arizona -4.5 as the play.
Yeah, and coming back in here, another over. His usual thing is take unders, go low. I like this pattern reversal here. I think it's a great adjustment for the undermaster. Taking the over here at 47. What's going on here?
It shows I have versatility, or it's a square Sunday. Either way, let's see how this plays out. Sometimes the square side, the overs, might be the right side, right? Another matchup, we're going to get into this and some other ones too, featuring a team that feasts on bad teams and kind of struggles against good, right? Guns has laid out that side for Arizona. They're 5-0 straight up against teams with losing records, 2-7 against teams with winning records. But that being said, even if the Cards do get there today, and I tend to lean with the gun, thinking they'll get there and hopefully get there by some margin, I think it's in a high-scoring way. One of my favorite stats about this team, when you look at it on both sides, is their defense getting stops on third downs, right? Getting off the field, stopping drives, forcing punts. Both of these teams rank in the bottom portion of that on a third down conversion rate percentage, defensive allowed. So Arizona comes in at 30th. They're giving it up at 44.58% per clip, and Carolina's last in the league at 47.8. So that's 30th and 32nd in the league, right? Not good. Carolina has also allowed a TD on 29.7% of their opponents' drives. That's good for last in the league. Fantasy-wise, Carolina's defense has allowed top 10 quarterback scoring weeks to Caleb Williams, Marcus Mariota, and Bo Nix. So I do expect Kyler to build on last week's momentum and kind of keep it going. And defensively, on the other side of the coin, Arizona continues to not generate pressure. They're 30th in pass rush win rate at 32%, and they're playing a lot more zone, a lot more bend, don't break. Now, they are converting that into giving up less TDs. A lot of that bend, don't break results in field goals. So you see, things get better as you go down the statistic tree here. So they're allowing a completion rate of 70.1% to quarterbacks, which means Bryce and that offense and kind of the newfound rhythm should be able to move the ball, stay on the field on third down and get it going. I think a lot of this is going to come down to, can they punch in or can they convert some of those field goals to keep pace with what I do expect Arizona to do, and that's get in the end zone. So Arizona, Carolina over 47.
I forgot to talk about the total because I agree with you on the total on this one. Great notes on this one. But yeah, going back to what I was saying about the rushing on this one, when they do get 150 plus rushing yards, actually Arizona averages 26 points per game. And then you have Carolina allowing 29.9 points per game. That's dead last in the league. But Carolina putting up points late, 20.5 points per game in their last six, over 6-1 when Carolina is a dog of 6 points or less too. So keep that note in there. And then on the Arizona side, when they're favored by 3 points or more, over is 3-0. So yeah, I think this is going to be a high scoring affair here in this game. Arizona,
let's sweep it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Our guy Ziggy says he doesn't trust Kyler Murray on the road in the cold. I will say this. Kyler had some sketchy sound bites in the press midweek talking about the cold. He doesn't like it, all this stuff. But I think what Gunn said about Carolina really is intelligent stuff. Carolina went 5-0 ATS over a period dating back pre-last week before getting blown out by Dallas at home with Cooper Rush. But if you really start to go through those 5 covers, they were much more on the opponent than actually Carolina. A really dead zone New Orleans team, the Giants overseas, Kansas City, who wasn't covering against anybody at that point, a lackluster spot for Tampa, and at Philly, who also wasn't covering against anybody at home at that point. So it's not so much that Carolina was that excellent. It was on the opponent. The only counterpoint would be Kyler, who is very enigmatic and can certainly flip his mind in all different ways. But this number's all over it. The only time this year, 2 times, I should say, Carolina was catching 4.5 at home outside of the division. Chargers week 2, 26-3 loss, and Cincinnati week 4, 34-24 loss. This game is graded right in that range. It does speak to a 10-point victory on the average. 2 officials in this game as well. Guns on Arizona -4.5 and Ant on the over. My next play, 1 o'clock, divisional football. First divisional game we're discussing this week. 7 this week, a larger divisional slate. And I really like to hone in on these divisional spots. So much more information. When I started to go through this, I started to like Indy, even though it looks like they're probably out of the playoffs. This is just a great home team with Indy. 4-2 ATS at home, started 4-0, 0-2 last 2. So you get a nice buy low. And I think you have to look at what those opponents were very specifically. Buffalo and Detroit, maybe the 2 best teams in the league. So if they're not playing Super Bowl quality opponents, they cover at home. And you want to talk about not Super Bowl quality opponents? The Tennessee Titans fit that mold to the max. This team is 3-11 straight up, 3-11 ATS. When they lose, they don't cover. And you're getting Mason Rudolph. Will Levis probably has played his last game for this team. The guy has looked terrible his entire career. Maybe he'll get a shot as a backup somewhere else. It seems like they're just testing the waters with Mason Rudolph. Well, Rudolph is not that much of an upgrade. 0-2 ATS on the road, both blowouts by an average of over 30 points. This guy's a gunslinger. This game will be wide open, a lot of turnovers. And key point on this second matchup of the year in this division. The first one, Indy did win in Tennessee with Joe Flacco at quarterback. Now you're getting Anthony Richardson, who has actually been very good against the spread at home in his limited career. And this line is heavily on Indy. In that particular game, week 6, October the 13th, Tennessee at home -3. This opened at Indy -4.5. This is not a neutral zone line. This is not a buy low at all on Tennessee. And this is where Indy will bounce back off a pretty egregious backdoor melt last week in Denver, committing 5 turnovers in that game on the road. You want to buy low here at every angle for Indianapolis. Massive coaching edge, massive QB edge, massive competitive edge, and truly a huge number here in the division. I have Indy to win this game by 9 on the average. Buy it, live it, love it, and let's dominate. Next play, another divisional game here in Cincinnati this afternoon. A lot of moving parts in this game. It seems like the Cleveland Browns cannot make a decision on who's their quarterback. Watson, Winston, now Dorian Thompson-Robinson, second-year product out of UCLA. Ant has taken note of that. I have taken the total. That's a totally separate conversation. The gun has a prop. We'll throw it to Ant first. Cincinnati in the first half -5.5 and game -9.
Yeah, don't hate the total either. We'll get into some interesting line functionality there. Right here, we got the Bengals still clinging to a slim playoff hopes. Again, we've talked about it for weeks. They need a lot to happen in front of them. The Denver loss on Thursday night actually is one of those big things and probably the thing they're keying in on the most. So what do the Bengals have to do? They just have to keep taking care of business. And that's what they've been doing. We talked about bad teams against bad teams and good teams against bad teams and good teams against maybe better teams. Cincinnati 6-1 straight up against teams with a losing record, 0-7 against teams with a winning record, albeit we've talked about a lot of these. We were on the wrong side and the right side in some of these. Many close L's and some tough spots, but that's the nature of the beast and where they are right now. So to cover the spread here today, up at -9, which I still do like, you need Burrow in this offense to keep going and keep rolling. He's thrown for 250 yards and 3 TDs in 6 straight games. At the same time, you expect and want and need the Browns to keep struggling. 22.2% of their possessions have reached the red zone or scored prior. That's also last in the league, right? So they're not generating explosive plays when they're not getting to the red zone, with conviction, with consistency. And if you're still not convinced, let's enter Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I love DTR, right? Was great at UCLA, has had some flashes here in the league, but really when he's out there, this offense continues to be a struggle. He's appeared in 1 game this season. He was 11-24 for 82 yards, and he threw 2 picks in kind of a short stint when Deshaun did tear that ACL and get hurt. Then they turned to Winston, as we talked about. And since the start of last season, there's been 64 quarterbacks who have thrown 100 or more passes, right, and will qualify for this. And in that rating, his 42.6 passer rating is dead last on that list of 64 quarterbacks. So I don't think they're going to be able to keep up. I actually like Cincinnati to come out guns a-blazing here a little bit and start this thing with pace in the first half. I think DTR and that Cleveland Browns offense is going to try to run the ball and start slow. So I like Cincinnati -5.5 in the first half for a half unit and Cincinnati -9 on the full game. I think they get it done. In the first half spots, the last 2 weeks against some of those bad teams that we talked about, they were up 17-10, so 7-point win in Dallas in the first half, and then 24-14 against Tennessee in the first half, so a 10-point margin there. So I think they'll get over the 5.5, and I think they do it full game to keep those playoff hopes alive.
Yeah, a lot to unpack here with DTR. Throwing it to the gun, a prop. The prop gun is alive and well on this Week 16 Sunday. Jerry Jeudy under 65.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, before we get into that, I just want to make sure this question came up in the chat. Serious question. I know you guys don't care about this stuff, but Public Joe really continued to dominate the NFL, especially after how chalky yesterday was. Public Joe was crushing. I was actually talking to a couple guys that were on my show yesterday, Mark Zito and Brian Power, about some of the same type of situations. Is like I what I've learned to do this year is I've kind of just ignored whatever the market's doing. I do kind of pay attention to line movement. That's kind of like a checkbox to me. I just trust the cap. I trust at this point we have so much data. We just got to trust the situation for a lot of these teams, and I can't concern myself with the fact that like, oh, the public's on this side or the public's on that side. That to me, that really doesn't matter because if it doesn't link up to how I do a cap, and I think these guys would agree. Well, I'm not paying attention to the market as much as I used to this year than I have been in the past, just on the sheer fact that there's so much volume coming in and so many syndicates are on one side. So we, highly respected money on one side that everybody's just trying to buy numbers at this point. So I don't get too concerned. You guys agree with that? Or is that,
Yeah, I completely agree. And again, I think, as you said, it's analyzing the market of the games and the psychological environments. Like, go back to the Rams cap being a really good example of this. A lot of people look at it, like I always talk about, like statically today, and they see a team that's significantly under 500, only catching 3 points, and they say, wow, that's short. Yep. But you always have to know when to zoom in and zoom out. And what I said when we capped that, which I think is really important, you have to go back to August. The Jets would have been favored in this game, -4.5. So what we're saying here is the books actually love the Rams. It's not just looking at two records today on December 22nd and saying, oh, wow, this is short. It's far more complicated than that. We don't want to be too long-winded on this. Gus, give us your take on the Jeudy under.
Yep. Let's talk about this, the under on his receiving yards here, because last time Jeudy played Cincinnati, if you actually look at his numbers, he had one catch, 18 yards. So, and I know everybody says everything about this pass defense for the Bengals. It's not. It's a little bit misleading when it comes to playing certain receivers. Now, DTR is going to be the quarterback. We did address that. It has not bode well in the passing attack. If you actually go look at his numbers when he was the starter, he hasn't surpassed 165 passing yards in his career. And then when DTR is the quarterback, it gets way worse for the primary receiver. This is the yardage that has been put up. Now, granted, a lot of these are Amari Cooper's numbers, not Jerry Jeudy. When DTR is the quarterback, the primary receiver has 16, 34, 18, and 19 receiving yards in those spots. And then you see the total here sitting at, I see FanDuel had 60.5. There's 65.5 still out there. If you go to like BetMGM, I think DraftKings had 64.5. His receiving average is 75.2 receiving yards per game. And if you look at his last 4 games, he's absolutely just been thumping. He's surpassed 60 receiving yards in 7 straight games, yet the line is sitting here low. It's telling you everything you need to know what's going to happen in this game. Jerry Jeudy is not going to have a good game today, in my opinion, and the books are telling you that. So I'm going to be taking under his 60 receiving yards, 65.5 as the play.
My official play in this game, taking the over at 48 early week. I got to be honest, when I cap this is before they switch quarterbacks, which is never ideal. We try to cap it so you guys can get the plays early. Sometimes it just goes this direction. However, I don't think hedging is the move. The line barely budged. And when you guys know how Jameis Winston plays, I mean, you saw almost 100 points in Denver a couple weeks ago with Jameis. The fact that books think DTR is in the range of a Jameis offense speaks to a lot, in my opinion. And I was looking at last year. DTR had 3 starts. He did go 2-1 versus the under, but I think it was actually very specific. Both of those unders were at home inside of the division. 28-3 loss against Baltimore. And that was Baltimore last year, who was a great defensive team, far better than this year, before obviously losing their coordinator to the Seahawks in the offseason. And then slightly later on, 13-10 against Pittsburgh. Also a great defense. Key point here, he was 1-0 versus the over on the road. 29-12 loss over 37.5 week 12 last year at Denver. And Denver has a good defense. And I think when you really start to look at the defensive statistics for these teams, it's really leaning towards a very high-scoring game, even though we're not getting Winston. This Cleveland defense has been touted up for considerable time for being very elite. They've had some injuries, and truthfully, I think they're just playing deflated. I think this is late season where the motivation is just not there. And if you look at their actual stats, Cleveland is 19th in yards against, 23rd in rushing yards against, which I think speaks to the Cincinnati running back situation. Chase Brown and others really getting going today. And they're 26th in points against. So this is not the Cleveland defense we were expecting. And Cincinnati has been an absolute gas can on defense all year. They weren't supposed to be great, but they've been far worse. 31st in points against, 28th in yards against, 27th passing yards against, 20th rushing yards against. So you think about DTR, the kid can run. He's definitely elusive. I think he could actually get up and down here today and really play some reasonable ball. And if you talk about a buy low, last week, the Browns only scored 7 points. And we had said this on the show last week. It's going to be a game where Jameis throws multiple picks against a good Kansas City defense. It's going to be an under type of game. And it absolutely was 21-7. Cleveland had 6 turnovers last week. That is so far beyond egregious. So you're going to get a bounce back there. And of course, this Cincinnati offense is just explosive and elite. And they need these games. And the door was mildly open when Denver lost to the Chargers on Thursday night. Their motivation is going to be huge. And when Cincinnati wins big and wins football games this year, it's offensive football. And final point on this is the second matchup of this year. These teams did play in week 7 in Cleveland. Key point on the line here, 21-14 Cincinnati, 35 final on a 42.5. And this opened at 47 and only moved down a half point with DTR. So looks like the over regardless of DTR. And as I said, 1-0 in his career as a starter against the over on the road. This game is going to be an open type of game. I have this at 52 points. Tons of officials in this game. It's divisional football in week 16. We have information, and when we have information, we like to pounce. Staying course, divisional football here, still at 1 o'clock. Philadelphia on the road in Washington. Rematch of a game in primetime going back a few weeks. Philadelphia did cover. Now they're laying a heavier number on the road than they were at home. It's very intelligent stuff. The gun, an official, Philadelphia -4.
Yeah, this is for the NFC East, I believe. So Philly's going to be super motivated here. 12-2 on the year, coming off that big win versus Pittsburgh at home. And then you have Washington off back-to-back wins themselves. They're 9-5 in the year, still in the playoff race. But when you look at Washington, utilizes the run game to set up the pass, right? They're 5th in offensive yards per game, yards per carry, and 3rd in rush yards per game. And then when you look at the passing offense, they're ranked 3rd in pass completion percentage, 9th in passing yards per play, 16th in passing yards per game. So what I'm telling you is, they want to run the ball. If they can run the ball efficiently, then you'll start seeing the passing game kind of open up there for Jaden Daniels. But they're going against a Philly defense that is one of the best in the league. They're 9th in opposing yards per carry against the run, 7th in opposing yards per game against the run. And then their passing defense is even better. They're 4th in opposing pass completion percentage, 1st in opposing pass yards per play, and opponent pass yards per game. A little tongue twister there. Then you have a Philly offense that is run-oriented first. They have Saquon Barkley. They have Jalen Hurts. They want to run the ball and pound it down your throat. 1st in rush play percentage. 4th in rush yards per play. 1st in rush yards per game. They are the best rushing offense in the league. And then you have a defense for Washington that is susceptible of giving up yards in the run game. 28th in opposing rush yards per play. 25th in opposing rush yards per game. And then you got to look at these two teams did meet in November. Philly did win the game 26-18 as 4-point home favorites, which is not the best place they like to play, but they still covered the spread. And now you're seeing the line identical But Philly is on the road, so they didn't even change the line. You would think it would move 2 to 3 points the other direction. It did not here. It's because Philly is on a roll, 5-1 ATS in 6 games, where Washington is 1-4 ATS in their last 5. And then you look at Washington. Yes, they have performed very well at home, 5-2 ATS, but those were all as a favorite. This is the first time they've been a dog at home all season. And if you go back and look at the history dating back to 2023, Washington is 0-5 ATS as a home dog dating back to last year. So I think Philly's going to be super motivated here to go win the divisional crown, get past that one, that one goal in their season, and then try to get themselves into a position that maybe they can get the home field advantage throughout the playoffs and the first round bye. They are 6-1 ATS on the road this season. So we're going to be taking Philly here. Give me Philly -4 as the play.
Yeah, honestly, I hadn't looked at this game in immense detail midweek when I was capping this. I'm adding this right now. I'm going to be playing this when we get off the air. -4 official. This is a great spot. I mean, Ant's got the green sweatshirt on. I mean, talk about a vibe here. And it's just going to be a road spot. Guns, you said it. There's 6-1 ATS on the road. I think even more importantly, like you said, Washington at home only covering as a favorite. And I just want to elaborate on this. The teams that Washington has covered at home against, get ready, guys. The Giants, Cleveland, Carolina, Chicago, and Tennessee. Those are probably the worst 5 teams in the entire league. I mean, you can't get any softer. And, speaking of soft, I mean, Philadelphia is the polar opposite of soft. This team is absolutely hard. Their run game, their physicality, they've caught momentum. And final point on this. Philadelphia 2-0 ATS on the road in the division, just outclassing these teams immensely. 28-3 at New York in week 7 and 34-6 at Dallas in week 10. This is why the line is heavy on the road. This is divisional line functionality. As Guns was saying it, I was thinking to myself, we wait all year for these second matchups in the division. How could I not pounce on this? This is a great look. And can we get you 3-way here?
You know what just happened? I just jumped on the bandwagon and we're doing the 3-way, which I think the 3-ways are dominating. Let's be clear. The 3-ways are absolute fucking fire. So yeah, I'm in. We'll take it. And look, it's a good emotional hedge for me. If the Eagles win and they cover, I win money. If the Eagles lose, hopefully outright, then I'm happy inside.
I got them +600 to win the Super Bowl. So
there you go.
Anything else?
3-way.
Absolutely. Let's dominate. Next 1 o'clock game. Speaking of the Giants on the road today at Atlanta. A lot of moving parts in this game. I believe we're getting Tommy DeVito. Is that correct, Ed?
We are not. I believe we are back to Drew Lock.
And of course, Kirk Cousins taking a seat on the bench. Guns was hosting Mark Zeno yesterday. I noticed he's a big Falcons fan. He gives a lot of commentary on the Falcons.
Oh yeah, he went off air about the Falcons. It was great.
I honestly have no idea what the Falcons. I have no idea what the Falcons are doing. I understand that Kirk Cousins has not looked good for a few weeks. He's been playing elite level defenses, and now he returns to where he's going to perform well. If Kirk played today, he'd probably put up 375 yards and 4 touchdowns against the Giants. Like, this is terrible coaching. And we said this actually, I believe, in week 1 or week 2. But Raheem Morris is a recycled, mediocre head coach. Another one of these guys, like Allen down in New Orleans, Raiders 10 years ago, now saying nothing changes. A mediocre coach once doesn't come back and all of a sudden change who he is. And this coach is not a very good coach. And if you remember in the offseason, the Falcons were flirting with Belichick. I'm not entirely sure why they didn't hire Belichick. I mean, I don't think that last summer Belichick was saying, no, I'm not going to go to the Falcons because I'm waiting for the UNC job next year. Like, no way he was saying that. I think it was some sort of bizarre clash with Arthur Blank. Of course, the owner, I believe he owns some massive corporation like Home Depot or something like that. But I don't know. Regardless, I think this is like a yes man head coach. I think Arthur Blank doesn't hire coaches similar to Jerry Jones that will challenge him as the owner. And I think this is a very mediocre coach. And I think that switching from Kirk now to Penix is really a horrible move. And you're on the Falcons here. So clearly you disagree with my take, but tell me what you think.
Look, it's obviously a bit of a buy in Atlanta and the Penix situation. I think that Kirk situation is and has been a tough one, but it's also a very big sell of what the New York Giants football organization is bringing to the table, right? This is a bit of a kitchen sink game for Atlanta. Obviously, they won last week, won ugly, 15-9. We talked about those Cousins limitations kind of leading to this benching. It seems like they're trying to get a shot in the arm offensively. They're trying to get the jolt going with Penix. Obviously, there's some unknown with a rookie quarterback, but that's also why I couldn't believe this line was sitting there at 8.5, 9 in some spots, right? Significant strength despite the quarterback move to this Atlanta Falcons team, and what I will call again kind of that kitchen sink game. They need to keep up with the Tampa Bay Bucks after having a 2-game lead in this division midseason and kind of squandering it. And there's a reason I think they waited for this game, this spot, right? It's at home. It's against the Giants. If they really see the potential for Penix to do this down the stretch or be the guy in the future, maybe there's some roster bonus money stuff at play, which the reports have already leaked out, which is unfortunate. But this is the spot to get him in there and get him reps in the regular season to see how this is going to go the rest of the way, right? Down the stretch, especially if they can sneak in and make the playoffs. So you get the quarterback roulette situation. I actually would prefer if it was Tommy DeVito. So we started with Danny Dimes. You had Drew Lock. You had Tommy DeVito. We even got a Tim Boyle sighting last week. Tim Boyle still in the league, still in the mix, which boggles my mind. It seems like it's going to be Drew Lock today. Like I said, I'd prefer the others. But despite Atlanta's offensive struggles recently, this Giants pass rush and their defense has also been severely limited, right? So they're coming in at 15th in the pass rush win rate, 12th in the run stop win rate. So not brutal, right? But kind of outside of the top 10. And Atlanta does want to run the ball. They have a high success rate on running back runs, good for 45.6%, good for second in the NFL versus a unit with a 60.3% success rate defending the run. So I think that running game, again, especially with a rookie quarterback in, is going to be what they rely on. And I think Atlanta is going to be able to slash and burn the Giants and get through to this number. And it's not even just that it's going to be slow ground and pound, right? Because another interesting wrinkle that I saw and that was pointed out was the Giants are giving up 14.7% of the rushing plays against the Giants have gained 10 plus yards. So that's highest in the league, right? Worst in the league. So you could see some explosive plays. So I think Penix and Atlanta at home in their comfort zone against an unknown in the Giants offense is going to get the job done. Significant line strength. So Atlanta 8.5 for me. I saw it at 9. I'd play it up to 9. Obviously, if it goes double digits, I wouldn't start messing with that.
Yeah. No. I mean, honestly, I don't know what to make of this game because I think this is obviously a very strong line for Atlanta. I personally don't love buying a rookie quarterback in their first game, and particularly a guy like Penix, who is not necessarily like your most refined pocket passer. Like, he's not like a Joe Burrow that came into the league and was just immediately fluid. I'm not saying they're not going to cover. I think he's going to have a tough game, though. I think he's going to be uncomfortable. I think the pass rush is going to get on top of him. Especially for a quarterback that likes to get outside the pocket. I mean, go back to his collegiate career. I'm not saying anything crazy here. Not the speed of NFL defenses on the edge. He won't have that space. He won't be able to get to the edge nearly as quickly on rollouts and design runs. So I think it's going to be a tough game all around. Guns, any thoughts?
I've never seen a line that big for a rookie's first start.
Yeah.
Never seen a line that big in my. I can't even. I would have to go back into the databases to find something. That is an insane line for a guy that has not thrown one pass in the NFL in the regular season. And I'm in the same boat. I don't know if I'm ready to commit. Credit to you, Oz. If you hit that, I'm just going to applaud you for a great cap because I just don't. I know the Giants are bad. But I mean, you're 9.5, 10 to a rookie quarterback. Yeah, I don't have any interest in this game. Maybe I'll look at the total a little bit later after the show. Maybe there's a spot there, but who knows? Right now I got nothing on this game.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I said, I don't expect Penix to be great. I think if you cover this, the total is actually speaking to a very low game, 42.5. I think you might see something along the lines of like 20-10, like real low, and just like they cover, but it's an ugly
17-3.
Some garbage. And it's like this is one of those games where when you make a bet on it, particularly with the favorite, it's like just go for a walk during the second half.
I will not be watching that.
Like, you're not going to want to sweat this and be like annoyed the entire time. So And on the Atlanta side here, and let's dominate. Taking a breath here. My next play, staying at 1 o'clock. Big time stuff here. This is the polar opposite type of stuff than you're finding with the Falcons Giants. Taking the Lions on the road in Chicago at 1 o'clock, -6.5. This is a great spot statistically to buy Detroit. Detroit has bottomed out, in my opinion. They're 0-3 ATS last 3. They didn't cover on Thanksgiving Day against the Bears at home, a game they were up significantly and gave it back late. Then they didn't cover the following week, also on Thursday, in the division at home against Green Bay, 34-31, hook non-cover. And this is where I missed the cap last week. I had them last week to bounce back. What I missed, and I mean, I had considered it, but I definitely missed it with the official play. When you start to not cover and you're showing signs of an outright loss, you're actually trending towards really a bottom out point, which is an outright loss. And they played their worst game of the year last year and lost outright at home to Buffalo. That is the end of that window statistically. They bottomed out. Now this is where they bounce back. And even within that game, they still scored 42 points and lost. This offense is outrageous in a good way. And I posted this on X early week. I don't know if this is factually accurate, but I do believe that Jared Goff had the best game in NFL history last week for a team that lost outright. 494 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And this defense just got shredded by an elite Josh Allen-led Buffalo team. Now they get to go back to Chicago and really kind of avenge a non-cover BS spot on Thanksgiving. And a key point here, this is what Detroit did last year, almost identically. Last year, midseason, they hit a little downturn and went 1-3 ATS, weeks 11 through 14, and then bounced back and closed the season 4-0 ATS last 4. And our guy Burns says, no way I'm betting the Lions today. Well, Burns, listen to this. Detroit is 9-0 ATS last 9 off a prior outright loss. They bounced back well, to say the least. And if you look at Chicago, Chicago is way too hot in the division and against the Lions. Chicago's 3-0 ATS last 3 against the Lions and actually beat them at Soldier Field last year, 28-13. So you're getting a great buy low on Detroit within the season and a bounce back off a loss. And you get a buy low Detroit against Chicago. And if you really look at that game that was played on Thanksgiving Day, Detroit dominated the game. 405 yards to only 300, 8 more first downs. Chicago backdoored it 13-0. And this line is on Detroit on the road heavily. We said this on the Thursday show. Last week, Minnesota laid the same number against Chicago and hammered them. Yesterday, in divisional play, Baltimore laid the same number against Pittsburgh. This is the same number. And we specifically said if Baltimore covers by some margin against Pittsburgh, it will correlate to how the Lions will play at Chicago. Chicago's in shambles. Caleb Williams looks uncomfortable. We talked about Penix having issues. Caleb has had issues all year. And truly, without Eberflus, an interim coach, this is going nowhere but south until next season. Love the Lions here at -6.5. Guns, any comments?
Yeah, I think the only way to go with this is the Lions. I think it goes back to like what you said. I mean, Thanksgiving, probably Chicago could have won that game, but the piss poor clock management, Eberflus really screwing up there. But I don't think it's going to be a bounce back per se. I think this is more of okay, Detroit coming back is going to go out there and dominate. And then you've seen them as like, okay, it's the first time the second time they've been on grass this year. First time was against Green Bay and they covered that spread. So why can't they cover this one here inside the division? I think it's the Lions are past for me.
Yeah, it's a great point. Detroit has performed really well on the road inside of the division in the last few years. Far worse at home in the division. It's a great bounce back. Any comments on this one?
Just on the total, and hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I
Yep.
have PC difficulties on the road show here. We're away from home, and sometimes you don't pack the essentials. But anyway, the mobile works. On the total, I really want to get there on the over. Just given some of the line functionality this game, the last time I think they closed at 47 and a half, and that game ended 23-20, and then the line opens up and stays right there at 47 and a half. I think speaking to a little bit of a higher scoring game or something that could get over that number, but I just don't trust both of these teams with the way the Bears come out generally in the first half, even with the coaching change. And then with Detroit, just what kind of offensive kind of game plan and attack you're going to get with the Montgomery injury and a slew of injuries that they're still battling. So I lean over, but I do think it's Detroit or pass on the side.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because we're talking about the line movement and in the chat here and all the splits. It's funny because we just had this conversation going back about 20, 30 minutes ago about static analysis saying, okay, today's record versus the line determines basically all intelligence in the game. It's so much deeper than that. And just keep that in mind. Best of luck if you're taking the other side. Let's kick some ass, Detroit. Going to 4 o'clock here. 4 o'clock game at 4:05. A slew of games at 4:25. Going to just quickly chat the Vikings game just to give you guys some points. It is NFL The Extra Points, where we give you all the information we certainly have to bring to you. This is a tough game. Vikings do not perform well in this spot. The Vikings have been elite all year. 12-2, 5-1 on the road. Key point, only road loss and non-cover on Pacific time at the Rams as a favorite. This is the one spot Minnesota has underperformed this year, and they're a little too hot. Conversely, Seattle has also performed poorly in this spot as a home dog outside of the division, blown out against the Bills. Another blowout prior. Guns, you said you hated this game. I don't like this game. Any comments
On which game?
That speaks directly to the garbage of this game. What game? Basically, the worst game to bet on the board. Vikings Seahawks.
Oh, Vikings Seahawks. Yeah. Okay. So yes, I did look into this game a little bit. Situationally, it plays to both sides' weaknesses, right? It goes back to how Minnesota does on the road outside the division versus how Seattle has performed at home. And you got them sitting here as a dog at 3. I think this is basically giving you a coin flip of a line on both type of situations. So for me, I had to pass on this game just because I couldn't find an angle that would work where one side was weaker than the other. I think if there's anything to look at here is the maybe over on pass attempts, because the one thing that is tried and true, everybody passes on the Minnesota defense. They're ranked 32nd in opposing pass play percentage and opponent pass attempts per game. And then you have a Seattle team that loves to pass the ball. They're 5th in offensive pass play percentage and 6th in pass attempts per game. And I think this total, when you see it sitting here at 34.5, with a quarterback that hasn't thrown over 34 pass attempts in 8 straight games, gives me a little bit of an indicator. You're probably looking at a lot of passing here from Geno Smith today. So I think from a prop perspective, that was the way I'd go with this one, is Geno over on his pass attempts.
Yeah, I definitely don't mind that. Going back to the official card here, 425 in Las Vegas. Really an uninspiring game, but the beauty of sports betting, turning a game into something that it clearly is not from a fandom perspective. Taking the over, Jacksonville in Las Vegas at 40.5. And this is really just a continued buy low on the Jags offense with Mac Jones. Mac Jones, just like all these other backup quarterbacks, is a gunslinger. He's out there to put game tape on record so some other team will find him and give him a starting shot. These games are wide open. You saw it last week, 32-25 against the Jets, 821 total yards. Go back prior, a couple other overs against Detroit. Detroit had 645 yards in the game themselves. A couple unders in this sample have been very much low side variance. Minnesota 12-7, 6 turnovers in the game. Darnold just throwing end zone picks like it's his job. And a divisional under 2 weeks ago against Tennessee. It's a great spot to buy the Raiders here on an over. Desmond Ridder has proved to be very incapable of scoring the football in his career with Atlanta and last week against Atlanta on Monday Night Football. 15-9 game. Now you get a bounce back, but you also get a QB change back to Aiden O'Connell. O'Connell only has one home game all year outside of the division. Week 6 against Pittsburgh, over 36.5. 32-13. It's going to be a wide open game. This is one of your classic games late in the season where neither team has anything to play for. You have backup quarterbacks who want to sling it. The defenses are terrible. Jacksonville is 32nd in the league, last in yards against and passing yards against. And both teams are tied 27th in points against, giving up exactly 26.9 points per game. No defense in this game. Backup quarterbacks. Take the over and let's dominate. Going back to the gun. Guns has the hat on and the sweatshirt and the fandom. Patriots traveling on the road today off a blowout loss in Arizona last week, going inside of the division in Orchard Park. Buffalo has been scoring at a historic rate. The gun thinks it continues today. New England, Buffalo, over 46.5.
Yeah, I don't think the scoring momentum is going to stop here with the Buffalo Bills. I think they are going to circle the wagons here versus New England, but the total is what I'm going to be focused on here. You have two teams that are polar opposite directions of one another. You have a 3-11 team versus an 11-3 team, right? But you have Buffalo that is ranked second in offensive scoring, putting up 31.8 points per game. They're third in red zone scoring percentage, and they're second in touchdowns per game. They put up, like I said, 30+ in 8 straight games. But this New England offense has really improved since they put Drake May under center. If you look at his numbers, they put up 300 yards of total offense in 4 out of the last 5 games. They've scored 19.4 points per game and giving up 25 or more points per game in 4 straight. Now, with New England defensively, they give up the points, right? They're ranked 23rd in opponent scoring, giving up 24.1 points per game, 23rd in opposing red zone scoring percentage, and they're 24th in opponent touchdowns per game. And then you just got to look at what the situation is for both of these teams. Buffalo is 5-1 to the over at home this season. When Buffalo is favored by 3.5 points or more, the over is 6-1 in those spots. And for New England, this is the highest total they've seen all season on the road, and the over is 3-0 in road spots where the total is 42 points or more in New England games. Also, the over is 3-1 in the last 4 meetings between these teams. This is the highest total, by the way, that in a New England Buffalo matchup since 2020. So that gives you an idea what the books are telling you about this line. I think we're going to be seeing a high scoring affair here in Orchard Park. Give me New England Buffalo over the total 46.5 as a play.
A lot of overs today, boys. Let's go.
I know.
Points.
It happens, right?
Yeah, any thoughts on this one?
No, I would lean that way too. I enjoy continuing to watch Drake May grow, but not really a huge motivational spot for the Pats, and we know the Bills have to keep pace. I will say on the line overall, and we talked about this a little bit off air. Maybe you'll add to it too, Shark. I think a little trappy on the line. It's just a weird spot. Obviously, the Bills care about the division, but they also have it locked up. They care about beating the Pats. They have them 2 out of the last 3 weeks of the year. So this is a matchup where you don't get the previous division game earlier in the season, which is a little bit interesting. So I could see a high scoring affair, and I could also see the back door wide the fuck open.
Yeah, I saw the look ahead on the next line. It's like 2 or 3 points under the current total here. So I think you may be seeing something high here. And then when they go back to New England, it could be a different story.
Yeah, obviously they play 2 games in the next 3 weeks. Finish the season in New England in January of next year. This is a funky spot for Buffalo. In terms of the total, I think the guy obviously making great comments. But in terms of the ATS side here, if there's ever a time you want to sell Buffalo, it's here. They're coming off of 4 straight gigantic games at versus Kansas City. Dealing Kansas City their first loss, blowout win against San Francisco at home in the snow. Then they go on the road, score 42 points in a loss at the Rams, and then come back last week and beat the Lions, scoring 48 points. Kansas City, San Francisco, road Rams, road Detroit. Now you're going to come home and play the Patriots. I don't care if this is Josh Allen, this is McDermott, this is an elite team. it's human nature to let down in this spot. You just played elite level football and competition for a month straight, and you get one of the worst teams in the league who's throwing out a rookie quarterback. I don't think they lose, obviously. I do think this game is going to hover somewhere in the margin of 10 to 14 points. Last night, I did see a plus 14.5. Let me see if it's still there now.
This team probably can't catch the number 1 seed, and they have the division wrapped up. So again, these last 3 weeks for them are going to be funky spots.
I wouldn't. Not so fast, my friend. I think there's 2 big games that Kansas City could lose back to back, and Buffalo could win outright and be the number 1 seed. So, I mean, they got 2 tough road games ahead. Kansas City does.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm just looking here now at New England. Yeah, I mean, New England has not performed well in the division this year on the road. They're 0-2. They got blown out at the Jets. But key point there, that was Jacoby Brissett. And that was also a short week, Thursday Night Football. That has nothing to do with this game. They did take a loss at Miami. Non-cover, 34-15. I want to just look at the box score of that game for a second, see what happened there. I had the over that week correctly. I remember the Patriots were down significantly, and then they scored late. They were down. They were getting shut out until the fourth quarter, 31-0. I mean, I don't know. They haven't performed well in this spot, but if I recall correctly, that was actually a Miami line. Miami was supposed to cover that, and it was definitely a Jets line. I played the Jets in that Thursday Night Football game back early season, so had a good grip there.
14.5 is available, minus 120 on FanDuel right now.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think, you never want to say there's a free roll line. A couple of our guys talking about all these dogs in the chat. I think this is a dog that you would want to take. I think this is 14.5. I think you're just in a great spot. You're kind of free roll. I don't think Buffalo beats them by more than 14. Terrible spot for Buffalo. This is going to be where Drake May probably bounces back off a real dud last week. And it's definitely a Patriot spot, in my opinion. Staying at 4 o'clock here, one more game. This is another disastrous game. This is really unfortunate, to be perfectly honest. When I was looking at these games back in October, I was thinking to myself, I'm in Florida. I was actually thinking to myself, Niners at Dolphins before Christmas. I'll drive down there and go watch the game. I mean, really, I was thinking that this would be an elite game. And now you're getting the Niners here at 6-8. I'm not sure if they're officially eliminated. They're certainly very close. Dolphins 6-8, also very close to elimination. These are 2 teams that very easily could have been sitting here 12-3 and 10-5 right now. It would have been a marquee game. That's why it's a 425 showcase game on CBS. I would venture to say that CBS probably had their A team lined up for this game, or the Romo Nance group. They're probably down there in Miami, and it's just unfortunate. I don't know what to make of this game. My initial read would be the over at 44.5. Any thoughts on this one?
I really wanted to get there on the Dolphins, just given the state of play with the Niners and the injury decimation. I mean, these are 2 teams who you alluded to, kind of year from hell status, right? Besides the Jets, these are probably the other 2 in the top 3 or 2 in the top 5, kind of in that category. I would have wanted to see a little bit more line strength, which is what I was hoping for. I think this is one, just given that coin flip sitting at 1.5 type of spread that they did, that you can probably attack it live. Look to see if a team gets up maybe by 2 scores or 1.5 scores, right? If you get the field goal in there, and you can get some margin going back the other way. So that's how I'm going to attack it. Kind of sit back and watch it, especially if it is that 425 nationally televised game.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the total here. Guns, do you have any thoughts on this one?
No, this was one that I just completely ignored. It's it had to do with a lot of the decimation, a lot of the changeover, and some of the injuries on the 49ers side. I just didn't want anything to do with this game.
I still lean Dolphins slightly, but I think these coaches know each other well. That always makes it interesting. These guys do play.
I think the line move is kind of interesting, though. Is you had, I think, Miami opened up as a favorite -2, and now they're a dog 2 to a team.
I thought it was still sitting at 1.5.
Yeah, I'm seeing 2s hit the board now, so it's giving me an indication that wise guys like the 49ers today, but I don't know. I could find an angle to get there.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting point on Miami in terms of the over. Miami's coming off of a really lackluster offensive showing last week, only scoring 12 points at Houston. That's the second straight road game they've really underperformed offensively. Going back to a Green Bay game on Thanksgiving, only 17 on the road. very polarized road versus home. Last 3 road games, 23-15 at the Rams, under 30-17. That went over at Green Bay, but not because Miami scored, and 20-12 last week, under. So they've been an under road team after Tua returned from the injury. They've been an over home team. 34-19 over against Vegas, 34-15 over against New England, 32-26 over against New York. Extremely polarized. And the Niners on the road here in Florida, I believe, are pretty explosive. I remember they lit up Jacksonville last year in Florida for like 30 plus. Last 2 times on the road for San Francisco, gave up 38 points at Green Bay, 35 at Buffalo. You got to go all the way back early season, week 6 and week 3, 2 overs, 27-24 against the Rams on the road, and 36-24 over against Seattle on the road. So this team is not really defending on the road at all. They did go under at Tampa Bay, but that was a crazy outlier. I believe they underachieved versus point expectation there by like easily 10 points. I'm not going to put it officially on record right now. I think the over in this game is actually a pretty elite look.
They're going to be. I mean, the 49ers are going to be passing a lot in this game. Garendo's not going to be playing this one. Trent Williams is hurt, so I think if they're going to create any sort of offensive production in this game, they're going to be passing the ball. So maybe some good opportunities for passing props here with the Niners today.
Yeah, and not only that, it's like I said with the Jacksonville Las Vegas game. It's crazy to say because we said you got 2 backup quarterbacks in that game, just slinging the ball around the yard. Where the Niners and Dolphins are right here is kind of like that game just on steroids, because this is actually kind of a garbage game at this point. And these teams are so much more offensively talented than Jacksonville and Las Vegas. So It's basically the same exact idea, just with far better rosters. This is a damn good over. I might get there and post it a little bit later. That's the last game at 425, 820. We do have an official on the late game. The gun has gone into his holster and ready to fire. Cooper Rush at home versus Baker Mayfield, over 48 at 820. Guns picks, unofficial.
I know I got a lot of overs today, and I'm on another one here with Tampa versus Dallas in Jerry's world at 8:20 tonight. You have Tampa Bay 8-6 on the year, a 4-game win streak, hottest team in the NFL if you ask all the NFL insiders on all the channels. Dallas on the other side, 3 out of the last 4 themselves, so they're actually cooking with Cooper Rush, quarterback, 6-8 on the year though. However, so that is not a good number, but. Dallas, when you look at their numbers, one of the worst in allowing points to opponents. They allowed 27.1 points per game. That's ranked 30th in the league. And then you got a Tampa team that is one of the best scoring offenses in the league, putting up 28.8 points per game. That is ranked 4th in the league. And then Tampa is Dallas defense. Weaknesses of rush defense are 29th in opposing rush yards per play, 23rd in rushing yards per game. So teams love to run on Dallas. And then you got a Tampa rush offense is much improved from last season. They are now a top 5 rushing attack in the league, 2nd in rushing yards per play and 4th in rushing yards per game. And then you got a Tampa. Tampa has put up over 150 rushing yards in their last 4 games. In those spots, when they put up over 150 rush yards, they average 34.1 points per game, 4-2 to the over. The weakness with the Tampa Bay team is their passing defense, right? They give up they're 23rd in pass play, opponent pass completion percentage, 17th in opposing pass yards per play, and 30th in opponent pass yards per game. And what does Dallas have to do? They don't like running the ball. They love passing the ball. They are ranked 6th in pass play percentage and 2nd in pass attempts per game. So this team is going to try to air it out versus Tampa. And Tampa is susceptible of giving up the yards and the scores on that one. And the over is also 4-1 in Dallas games last 5. And Dallas is 5-1 to the over at home this season. So and also on the Tampa side, 5-2 to the over on the road this year. And this is the 2nd highest road total Tampa has seen all year. So give me every indication that we're looking at a high scoring affair in Jerry's world tonight, 8:20 p.m. East. Give me Tampa, Dallas over the total 48 as a play.
Yeah. And what are the fans thinking about the Cowboys tonight?
I think it could be an absolute smash spot for the Bucs too, as well as I like this team has played for McCarthy and kind of stayed in it. They've been actually fun to watch kind of in some of these spots. And as underdogs, it's just the spot they haven't performed well, unfortunately. Maybe that changes with the recent run, but at home, like Guns has mentioned, they've struggled. They've given up some big chunks. They've gotten blown out there before. You'd hope primetime could get in the mix a little bit, but I could see the total getting there. I do think it's going to be track meet style either way, and I would actually lean Bucs on against the spread as well.
Yeah, I think when you look at what the Bucs did at the Giants on a similar line within this division, 30-7, they were -6, -4.5 here. The only worry I would have with taking Tampa Bay here is they just played some elite second half football last week at the Chargers, staying on the road. And Cooper Rush has been scrappy in his career. I think more notably on the road, obviously covered last week, I believe. The game against Carolina last week. Yep. But I think this game could be tight, similar to the game we saw at home against Cincinnati, Monday Night Football, Week 14, where if you guys remember, Cincinnati did cover that in a really fluke play. I believe a fumble on a
fake punt touched.
Yeah.
And they got the blocked punt that was touched. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, really fluky stuff. So I think Cooper Rush might be competitive here. And that game was high scoring, 27-20. I think you're going to see a lot of points here. I could see Tampa Bay letting down in this road spot and Cooper Rush being scrappy. ATS spot's going to be tough. 8 o'clock tonight. Gun on the over at 48. Monday Night Football tomorrow night is going to be a really tough game. Green Bay's laying 2 touchdowns to the Saints. Spencer Rattler on the road. Just covered last week. Came in the second half and backdoored Washington. Almost won the game outright. And just reminded me of how much we love Philadelphia today. Spencer Rattler almost beat the Commanders last week. Keep that in mind for the quality of this Washington team. But I think Rattler's a complete coin flip. You've seen him in limited duty show immense, I would say, ability to score the ball in quick pockets, but then also get blown out. Game against Tampa Bay at home, lost 51-27. But the game was super tight in the first half. They scored like 24 points in the first half. It's very much hot or cold quarter to quarter with this guy. And you have to ask yourself, how much motivation does Green Bay have to just like absolutely slaughter an out-of-division opponent? It's kind of a funky spot for Green Bay, similar to what we said with Buffalo on a very similar line. I don't love buying New Orleans. I don't love buying Green Bay here. Either of you guys have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I don't even think I'm going to even put a bet on this game. I may just do it. Obviously I do with the prop gun, so I'll probably find some angle on a prop. But aside and total, I got nothing on this game. It's just I'm just tossing this one out of the window. I'll move to week 17.
Ooh. I completely agree. And this is another one of these games where these games are in prime time because when they scheduled this stuff back like last spring, this was supposed to be an upstart Derek Carr Saints versus the Packers. This was supposed to be the Bucs in Dallas Sunday night before Christmas. Dak Prescott and the boys like getting ready for the playoffs. Just the insanity of how quickly things can flip in professional football. That's the show for this week. NFL, the extra points, the big show, week 16, the Shark, the Gun, the Odds Fellow. Bunch of top plays on this card. We have 7 divisional games this week, which usually leads us to more plays as we have that much more information. I have the Rams at -3, Indy at -4.5. You can get that at 3.5 now. Detroit -6.5, Cleveland, Cincinnati over, Jacksonville, Las Vegas over 40.5, and Philadelphia, a 3-way collab with the Gun and the Odds Fellow, -4. Odds Cincinnati -9 and first half -5.5. Atlanta -8.5. Jets, Rams over 46.5, and Carolina, Arizona over 47. The Gun, Arizona -4.5. Buffalo, New England over 46.5. Jerry Jeudy under receiving yards 65.5, and Tampa Bay, Dallas over 48. We appreciate you guys immensely hanging out with us on a Sunday morning. A beautiful Sunday it is. Happy holidays. For Odds, Guns, close out with some words, and let's dominate.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody that you're watching right now, please hit the like button on this video if you're enjoying the content that comes on this channel, on the Sharky Waters Nation channel, on the Guns Picks channel, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And also check us all out on X at Guns Picks, GUNZPICKS, at Sharks in Sports, and at the _odds_ fellow. Go check us out, give us a follow, and get engaged with us, and let's dominate the board here, boys, because we have a beautiful Sunday slate. And of course we'll be back with the show on Thursday, And we'll have to talk about if we're going to do another show on Friday. I think we're going to do a bowl show on Friday. We'll figure that one out. But it's going to be a beautiful week. It's going to be a beautiful, absolute, dominating Sunday. So let's catch some ticks. Let's dominate the bowl. And as always, let's keep dancing. Yeah, bang.